This lesson is on telling time to the hour and the half hour. When we're telling time, we need to look at a clock. And this is a picture of what's called an analog clock. An analog clock has numbers that go in a circle all the way around. It starts with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and ends with 12. And if we went all the way around the clock, that would be 60 minutes. Now, when we're looking at a clock, it's really important that we know what the hands are and what they mean. The long hand on a clock is called the minute hand. That measures the minutes on the clock. And then we have a shorter hand that's called the hour hand that measures the hours. Whenever the big hand is pointing to the 12, such as in this picture, it always means o'clock. Now you first look at the hour hand. The hour hand's pointing to the 4, and the big hand's pointing to the 12, so we would say that that's 4 o'clock. If we had the small hand pointing to the 7, and the big hand pointing to the 12, that would be 7 o'clock. If we had the small hand pointing to the 2, and the big hand pointing to the 12, that would be 2 o'clock. Now there's another thing we need to know too about that long hand that measures the minutes. Whenever it points to the 6, it always means 30 minutes after the hour. And I'm going to write 30 here to remind us of that. So if the small hand was pointing between the 2 and the 3, and I say between because after it's been 30 minutes, that hour hand starts to move, this would be 2:30. If the hour hand was between the 10 and the 11, and the big hand was on the 6, that would be 10:30. If the little hand was between the 1 and the 2, and the big hand was pointing to the 6, that would be 1:30. Let's look at some examples of clocks and see if we can figure out what time they say. Right here, we see the big hand pointing to the 12, and the little hand pointing to the 9, so that would be 9 o'clock. When we look at this clock, we see the little hand pointing to the 2 and the big minute hand pointing to the 12, so that would be 2 o'clock. On this clock here, the hour hand is pointing to the 5 and the minute hand is pointing to the 12, so that would be 5 o'clock. On this next clock, we have the hour hand pointing to the 6 and the minute hand pointing to the 12. So we would say that this is 6 o'clock. Now when we write the 2 zeros, it always means o'clock. This right here is our analog clock, like we explained before, and this right here is called the digital clock. And whenever you see 0, 0, that always means o'clock. Let's look at another picture. This one looks a little bit different. Now we have the minute hand pointing to the 6, and we said that that meant it was 30 minutes after the hour. Well, right here, you can see that this arrow is between the 11 and the 12. That means it's 30 minutes after 11. Or we can say 11:30 on our digital clock. Let's look at another one. Right here we have the big hand on the 6, so remember that means 30 minutes after, and we have the smaller hand between the 1 and the 2. That means it's 30 minutes past 1 o'clock, or we can say 1:30. Let's look at another clock. Right here we have the minute hand on the 6 and the hour hand between the 8 and the 9. That means it's 30 minutes after 8, or we can say it's 8:30. And on this clock here, we have the minute hand on the 6 and the hour hand between the 4 and the 5. That means it's 30 minutes past 4, or 4:30. That ends our lesson today on telling time to the hour and the half hour.